This is the VIP Podcast, Virginia in Politics. Let's listen to host Chris Saxman explore the personalities and policies that connect the Commonwealth. The VIP Podcast is brought to you by the VCTA, Broadband Association of Virginia, and Virginia Free. The views and opinions expressed here do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the VCTA and Virginia Free or our sponsors.
Hi, this is Chris Saxman back on the VIP Podcast brought to you by VCTA, the Broadband Association of Virginia and Virginia Free, of which I am the Executive Director. Joining me today, Delegate Mike Mullin and Delegate Ferrell Tata. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Give me a 30-second introduction to Delegate Mike Mullin.
Well, you know, I'm the delegate down from Newport News and Williamsburg, down on the Virginia Peninsula. You know, I've been a delegate now for about 6.5 years, and it's been an extraordinary honor. In my real life, I work as an attorney and a former criminal prosecutor, and so much of the work that we've been doing up here in Richmond has been working together with what I do in my private life, which is criminal justice reform. So that's what's been really animating me while I've been in the General Assembly. And, you know, back at home, father of 3 boys.
Okay. What are the ages?
11, 9, and 7.
Wow.
So
I just got really tired. I mean, like almost exhausted hearing those numbers.
Well, you know what? It's been a real blessing, if for nothing else, but we only have to buy one set of clothes and then just sort of move them down the line.
Okay.
So, but it's a wonderful experience being down in Williamsburg.
That's great. Great stuff. And Ferrell, Delegate Tata.
Thank you. Yes.
I got that right.
Yes, you did. Thank you, and I appreciate it. I have been a delegate for about 6 weeks, and I'm also in Virginia Beach, and I actually took Jason Mayara's place in the House of Delegates, and I'm a wife, a mom, a grandmother, and I work in Christian media on my real job, and I'm thoroughly enjoying being here. Really felt called to come and serve, and that's what I've been trying to do.
Let's talk about that calling, and Mike, I'm going to throw it over to you as well to ask that big why question. Why are you doing this? I mean, you're a grandmother. You have a happy life.
Yes.
What was the call?
Yes, and actually at the time I got the call, we had just become empty nesters, so we had really planned out we were going to start traveling.
Michelle, do not listen to this woman. Because we're empty nesting. This is no time to run for legislature. Exactly. I think we have an open seat, though.
Oh, Lord.
She'd win. Go ahead.
Well, the funny thing is when they call, I knew they wanted my name because my father-in-law served for 30 years, and he really was beloved by Republican and Democrat.
Coach Tata.
Absolutely.
And he was just a good guy, and he really was a good guy. So I knew they wanted my name, and they really wanted my husband, but he's a partner in a law firm, so he couldn't do it, so they deferred to me. And my first thought was absolutely not. I had no interest.
So you were recruited. You were asked to run.
Yes.
Okay.
And I had worked behind the scenes. My husband and I had given plenty of, fundraisers and meet and greets, hosted a lot of things, but never had any interest in running. And I said,
At all?
No.
Never saw yourself?
Never in a million
Clear
years.
as a nothing.
Clear as a bell. That was one thing that was very clear.
Okay.
That's why I got
You never said, I could do that one
No.
day. All those events, being so close to Coach Tata, all those years, I can do that. You never had that moment.
I have had that thought when I'm watching the Olympics. I watch the Olympics and I think I could do that sport. I could do that. But
okay, well,
with the politics, no.
Maybe as a young athlete growing up, because I could have done that, but now you say you could do that?
No, even now, there's something in my brain that says I can do that. I can still do that. Curling. I mean,
curling. Okay.
Archery.
Yeah, exactly. So
Curling,
anyway,
I think, will just devolve into a drinking sport. I mean, even if you're at the Olympic level, you'd have to go. Seriously, guys, just bring me a beer.
It seems to go well with the Canadian background for it, so
Isn't there a big training center here in Richmond for curling?
There is.
I think there is.
I've heard that.
This should be like the new bipartisan caucus. We should have like a curling caucus.
Tell you what, if you want to go curling,
Let's go.
will be
Let's do it.
in for it. Absolutely.
Right?
You heard it here folks, first. You heard it here on the VIP podcast. We just started the Curling Caucus, brought to you by Mike Mullin and Ferrell Tata.
There you go.
Okay.
See?
Pick up your teams.
Right. So anyway,
It's a drinking sport waiting to happen. It's going to be bad.
Exactly.
It's going to be really bad. But we could raise money off of it for some.
We can
Exactly.
think how many people. We can get a lot of people interested.
Oh, absolutely.
It'd be
See,
fun.
there's a lot of bipartisan stuff.
We
We're
just
already
did
doing
this.
it for VCU, so we can do it now for curling as well.
Why not?
I think it's a
That's
great
the
idea.
spirit, kids. Get in. So what else do you think you can do in the Olympic sports, Ann Ferrell Tata?
Well, no matter what the sport is, I don't know, there's just something that I think that I could do.
Okay.
Politics was not, I never had that thought when I was.
Let's not leave the Olympics just yet, because I got to drill down on this one. What won't you do in the Olympics?
Well, there's a lot that I wouldn't do. Basketball. I'm
Okay.
only 5'4".
Oh.
So, but field hockey,
Okay.
maybe, and definitely archery.
Field hockey's intense.
It
you
is
know, When
intense.
I played football in high school, and we had to go and watch all of the other teams as well. And field hockey was the most violent sport.
It's
I would
very.
Never go in a
yeah.
field with a bunch of young girls with sticks in their hand.
And
Your shin
no
would just
pads. I mean, just a
Oh,
little
yeah.
shin pad, and
Yeah.
that's it.
No way in hell.
3 of my
Violent.
4 children are girls, and they all played field hockey.
Oh,
and they would
okay, so
come in
you're
with
familiar with the sport.
bruises
Oh,
all
yeah.
over.
My Lord.
They do have little shin guards, but
Well, how
They
about
don't
how about
fight a
these?
lot.
How about luge and skeleton? Do you think you could do the luge and the
that
skeleton?
no, I don't think I could do that.
Okay.
Although
All right, Mike. What about you on the Olympic sports?
So, as somebody who grew up on a lot of very famous Disney movies, I always think about Jamaica has a bobsled team.
Yes,
Cool Runnings.
bobsled.
Yeah, so that's always the thing that I
One of
think
your
about.
colleagues came in and said that was his favorite movie. I want to say it was Ren Williams.
Really?
Yeah, this is why I ask these questions, because this is how you connect with people, and you get away from the partisan stuff.
Of
We
course.
talked about this before we went on air.
Mhm.
I think it was Ren Williams. I have to go back and check my
Well,
notes.
that was a great movie.
Oh, just one of the best.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
makes you believe. The underdog.
Mhm.
Everybody loves
So-
an underdog story.
So what other ones? You said the bobsled.
I still I played baseball in middle school, and
Okay.
I always wanted to be able to play it in high school, and I just wasn't good enough, and so moved over to football. But just the idea of being able to go up and play baseball, even if it's just like AAA ball, just for a second, single A, whatever it happens
Yeah.
to be, I just want to be able to pull a Michael Jordan and try and do a different sport just for once.
That was extraordinary when Jordan left to go play baseball for the White Sox in the middle of his career,
Amazing, but
and almost made it. He would.
almost
He would.
made
He
it.
would.
Yeah,
have.
honestly,
He
you
would.
know,
have. I think
mean,
his coach was Terry Francona, and
That's
they said he could have gone, but he went back to the NBA.
Well, you know what? I mean, one of the most extraordinary athletes. And by the way, you should definitely watch the HBO documentary as well. Just
Oh, the
wonderful.
10-part series.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, really great.
I've heard it's good. I've seen some of it,
Hmm.
but not all of it.
Highly recommend it.
Let's dive into the General Assembly session. We're after crossover. You can probably get some sleep. Although guys on courts of justice, they call it judiciary in the House now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Judiciary Committee used to be Courts of Justice. For those playing at home on the board version, are you getting any sleep now? Are you getting out earlier?
One of the nice things about divided government is that sort of the more extreme things don't come through, and so by crossover, we're actually sort of in a good place, I think.
I
The
agree.
budget is in a positive place. I think we're going to be doing great work for the judges, and I've been very happy with the way that this session has gone.
Not to put words in, but my take on the session is that has been very mechanical, clinical. The mill is running, and there's been some grenades lobbed back and forth, but not nearly as brutal as I thought it would be with so close of a majority in both chambers. Have you experienced that too? Am I off base?
No, not at all. So what I would usually say is that maybe 3 or 4% of what we do is particularly partisan.
Right.
That's what you see on Twitter. That's what you see in the RTD. That's what you see in the newspapers back home. But separating that aside, most of the work of the General Assembly doesn't fall on partisan lines. And the divisions that you sometimes see most often are rural, suburban, and urban. And so those are not necessarily partisan. And once you sort of take that part away, the General Assembly works quite well, I think. This session has been great mechanically, as you said. Committees are operating on
But
time.
not in a boring, dull sense. It's just doing what it's supposed to do. The process is running.
That's the genius of the Virginia system, which
Isn't it?
is that we don't have professional politicians. We have people who come in from their own background and experience, whether that's in Virginia Beach, whether that's in Roanoke, wherever it happens to be. You have people who bring in their own personal background and expertise. I'll be honest with you, I don't know anything about dairy farming. I probably never will. But when a bill regarding dairy farming comes up, I'm going to walk down the hall and I'm going to talk to Delegate Webert from Fauquier.
Right.
And he's not an attorney, so when he has some questions about nonpartisan legal things, he comes down and speaks to me. That's the relationship building that we have, because everyone has a background in something different, whether
Right.
it's real estate or farming, whatever it might be.
Delegate Tata, now you've had a lot of background in politics, close proximity to it, probably very familiar with the flow the life around it, being a family member and now coming into serving, what are your impressions of the General Assembly actually having to do it on the floor and in committees?
Well, I've been very, very just overwhelmed with just the excitement and the energy, and I really feel like every day is exhilarating. That's how I've described it. And for me, I'm naturally a very curious person, and who knew that I would be fascinated with the tow truck industry? You know, we have all these things that
I wouldn't have known that.
I wouldn't have known that. I never would have known that. Or windshields. The differences between windshields. You know, just getting your windshield repaired. There are so many things to consider.
I'm guessing you're on transportation?
I am on transportation.
Okay.
And who knew? But you know, it's like you become a little expert in everything because I came in not knowing a lot about the different industries, like Mike was saying. But then you just learn, and I find it totally engaging and fascinating and exhilarating is the way I've said it. And I have really, really enjoyed getting to know my Democrat colleagues too, because that was sort of a goal that I had in the beginning, was just to make relationships, and I've really, really felt like I've made so many great relationships already on both sides of the aisle.
What's the one thing you would change in the General Assembly or the House of Delegates?
The one thing I would change, more money, because there are a lot of things that
the pay is stupid.
Not for me.
The pay is stupid. It's
but not for that.
I will. I'll say it. I'll look right in the camera. Pay them more.
No,
you're not even making minimum wage.
Nobody does this for the money, right?
No.
You can't do it for the money. Listen to me, people. You need to pay them more. They make $17,600 before taxes. Before taxes.
But there's so much we could do. I mean, I had to vote against a bill this morning that we didn't have the money for, and it is.
Oh, that money.
Yeah, that money.
Well,
that money.
I'm talking about paying.
We need more money with less taxes.
I had 4 kids.
Listen, we have 3 right now, so I understand completely.
Yeah, the health care is great, but
not the same.
Not the same, right?
Right. I lose about $12,000 a year working this job.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I had to take a leave of absence.
This is true public service.
Yes.
Well, you know, that's one of those things that attorneys have. You know, real estate agents, other people. You know, you sort of eat what you kill, and so if you're not out there working and hustling, you're not making any money and bringing it back. So that's part of the sort of public service.
And Mike, are you in a firm, Delegate Mullin?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
And a wonderful firm with great attorneys who have been willing to be able to help while I'm here. But, you know, I mean, that's a sacrifice. And it's one I'm proud to make. And I know that you are too. But I think that's why the Virginia system's so great, is because you have people who really want to be there. They're not doing it for the money. They're not doing it for the glory. They're there because they want to be able to help people.
And I think your father-in-law for 30 years did that. You know, he was a public school teacher and football coach. So many of the people are from various places around the Commonwealth, and you know, for them to do that this is tough work after a while. This is not part-time. It's full-time work. It's part-time pay. It's not even part-time pay. It's below part-time pay. But to do it, to continue to do it, you know, it's a testament to having done it. I know it and respect it. I respect anyone who goes through this process and continues to come back. I guess the question I would throw to you, Mike, is what would you change?
You know, well, one of the things that I would probably change is the late night sessions, particularly on Fridays. You know, I think we probably could benefit from an extra week or two. Just sort of expand the General Assembly session, particularly prior to crossover, because the sheer volume of bills, you know, I think it was 2,700 this year that came through the General Assembly, and you know, that's the same as Congress, but they have a full year to do it, and we try to do it in 90 days. And so I think we need more time, particularly on courts of justice or committees like Labor and Commerce, where you know, fully a third of all the bills are coming through those 2 committees.
Right.
You know, it's a lot of work.
The pace is unbelievable. I mean, but I'm really impressed at how much we can get done.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Looking for a little bit deeper on that one, a little bit more spice. I mean, what else would you change?
What else?
Come
would
on.
I change? All right. You know,
I'm going to drill on this one.
So, the collegiality here is so wonderful, but it doesn't show up on cameras.
No one talks about that.
It doesn't.
Everyone comes in here and says, "Yeah, we get along great."
Well, so I'll give you an example.
I mean, it was the same way when I was here. Oh, we got along great. Go home, you read the papers, they're like, all y'all do is talk about abortion. Like, we never talk about abortion.
So, you know, so I'm blessed to be over in the coffin corner, way off in the left-hand side. And we're a little.
See you.
I know. And we're a little rowdier, a little bit crazier. And we try to have as much fun as possible. You know, we got little flags up, wave the white flag when somebody's been talking too long, as we were discussing earlier. So I wish people got to be able to see that we do really like and care about each other, that we spend time with each other.
Where's the breakdown then? Why does it break down, and why do we facilitate the breakdown and not go, look, it's time to call balls and strikes on our own side? Because both teams do it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. We both have our bad actors, our silly actors, our people we would prefer to go, we could really use this one not showing back up.
I think it's because people are always focused on the next election. And, you know, so there are benefits and drawbacks to that. You know,
nature of the beast.
You know, the General Assembly on the House side is as close as you could possibly be to the feelings and sort of the movements of the population as a whole. So because we have to essentially be always running, you know, I've run 5 races since 2016, and yeah, a little much. And
so you're not looking forward to 1 in 22?
You know, I'm always looking forward to another race.
No, you're not. You don't want to run in 22.
Well,
nobody wants to run in 22.
You know, that would definitely change a lot of personal plans, I can tell you that. But I like being able to...
What I'm referring to, ladies and gentlemen, is a potential court ruling that would make these incumbents run in the brand new districts.
When will we know about that?
So, you know, the ongoing lawsuit, the next hearing is going to be later this month. I have to be honest with you, I don't know for sure. I have no special information, but I just have a feeling that the court's going to end up running out the clock on this.
Okay.
And that by the time that a ruling ends up coming out, that it'd almost be moot.
Okay.
So I think there's a very strong possibility we might have to run this year, but I just
what do you
don't
think the
it's
odds
going to
are?
happen. I think it's
of running again?
Of this year?
Of having an election this year?
Maybe a third, you know.
Okay, it's not even 50%.
I don't think it is at this point, because you know, you can see how the court keeps delaying motions. And you know, I mean, they were supposed to have a hearing in December, and it's been pushed off now a couple of months, and so I just don't see that.
Is this a conversation in the caucuses?
Not really at this point.
Caucus,
yeah, and on our side, mostly we're focused on legislation and the bills of the day. I'm sure come March 13th, all of a sudden everything shifts, and we'll start talking about things again. But not really.
Same with us.
Yeah, our caucus doesn't really do the election stuff during session.
Okay.
And I don't think yours.
No, we really don't.
Yeah.
You know, because you've been here, so you know, but you know, some of these speeches during the points of privilege, and when I first started, which, you know, 6 weeks ago, I was horrified. I was like, oh my gosh, are they really saying that out loud? And it kind of went back and forth. And then you go into the member lounge and everyone's like, hey, how was your weekend? Everyone was so nice. And the other thing that I really loved
even
is,
to the same people who were
just
dropping the bombs on them.
Oh yeah. And I think it is, you know, some of it is for theater, but what I also really appreciate, again, being new, is watching, you know, during when some things are going on, you have time to talk, how everyone goes to the other side to talk about either their bills or whatever. They have these discussions. You know, you guys come over to our side, we come over to your side, and there's really great discussion, and they're trying to work things out.
Absolutely.
Well, I think your senator, is Mason your senator, Monty?
You know what? The nice thing about having Monty as my senator is that we look alike. Sometimes we talk alike. We share offices. And so sometimes he'll go to an event, and then I get thanks afterwards. People come up and say, man, you were such a great speaker at the Kiwanis this weekend. I'm like, it was Monty, but you know, that's all right.
This person
you know what? Yeah, so so Monty has been.
Well, one of the things he mentioned was, and to your point, Delegate Tata, was the fact that because the majorities are so thin in both chambers, that everyone has to work in these continually loose coalitions to get their bills through.
Absolutely.
And so it has really dialed the temperature down when my natural inclination to think about the session was going to be a bunch of bomb throwing after an election with a change of administration at the executive branch, that everybody would be like, oh, keep the fire on. What it has turned out to be is that they're trying to get work done.
You know, that's definitely been the case in the House. I've been surprised. You know, the Senate's usually the cooler body, you know, a little less rowdy, a little bit more mature.
Older, slower, safe, heavier.
Well, I would just
Don't let
say
him put words in your mouth.
I would just say that Monty is the
We all know.
Monty's the young guy playing basketball for their team this year. So
He's the freshman.
He's the young guy on
He's
the
the
team.
spry one.
That's it, right. So, you know, the Senate, though, has had a little bit more of that sort of fight to it this year in a way that I think is a little bit more unusual. Usually that's what I would expect out of us, but the collegiality that we're seeing in the House this year, I think
Where do you think that comes from in the Senate? That's an interesting observation, because I try to watch the floor sessions. I mean, I can only be but so much of an election nerd and just go, guys, really, I just can't do this every day, as I'm sure you would turn it off too, but I see some, but not a lot. But that's interesting that a House member would say it's more over in the other side of the chamber when I would have expected it not to be.
I think part of it is a shift in how the Senate's starting to communicate. You're starting to see for the first time that Republican and Democratic members in the Senate are really embracing social media in a way that the House has been doing for a decade plus in really interacting with their constituents.
So you're disturbed by the fact that the Senate used the internet now?
They still do paper cards too.
Yes, they do. Well, I would just say that with the ARPA funds that we finally are able to get broadband access to everybody.
The Senate now has broadband?
Yes, and thank goodness for it, because it was the last place in
If
Virginia.
they discover Google, I think it's going to be a game changer over there.
But I do.
So you're not taking any of this bait. It's disturbing.
Well, I'm sorry.
You should run with this.
We've been doing well. I'm very proud of us.
Yeah, one
He's
team, one
mild
goal.
mannered.
Yeah, there you go.
What's
There
that?
you go. One team, one goal.
Ah.
There's a wonderful line in The West Wing that talks about, I think Jeb Bartlett, the idealized Democratic president that's never actually existed. But
That guy could never get elected.
Oh no, but I wish he would. There's a wonderful line in there that says, the other side is the opposition. The enemy is the Senate.
Yeah.
To take off on Lyndon Johnson.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that was
Yeah.
a
Speaker Rayburn, I think it was Speaker Rayburn.
Oh, wow.
named the
Called-
building after him.
Right,
Yeah.
called Lyndon Johnson to his office because in his freshman year, Lyndon Johnson went on a tirade on the House floor, ripping Republicans. And said, Lyndon, we don't do that here. But Mr. Speaker, they're the Republicans. He goes, yes, Lyndon, the Republicans are the adversary. The Senate is the enemy.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was-
That
I
is
think
Love
awesome.
that.
That's an old story from Lyndon Johnson days.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, and then of course he went over to be the enemy.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
One of the most famous of all time.
Exactly right.
By the way, I'm glad you are getting him on camera now with his mustache, because his mustache may be gone in a few days.
It's becoming famous. I hear the
Have you heard about?
pictures are being posted all over the General Assembly building.
All
What-
over the building.
What was the move to the mustache, the stash?
Well-
so,
Is it a Ted Lasso moment for you?
you know what? That is the best show streaming right now. I would recommend.
I saw
Ted
the first
Lasso.
season 11 times.
Oh my Lord!
11 times.
Wait.
Recommend it to
Okay,
everybody.
hold on. Remember, I'm new. So the mustache is new?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No,
I
I
didn't
started
know.
growing this in November
Oh.
for fundraising for Movember.
See, I've
Okay.
only known him with the mustache.
Okay.
Okay, but now,
No,
so
I've been fresh-faced most of my life,
okay.
but grew it for Movember. And then my wife said, I kind of like it. And
right.
so kept it on for
Yeah,
a
I
little
like
while.
that. He came in with the hat. You got that English kind of vibe to
Yeah,
it.
got the
Irish,
look,
but
he does.
same thing. And,
so those were fighting words.
yeah. Well, we still have family who live on the family farm in County Leitrim.
Oh.
wow.
Yeah, so not that far from the family back in Ireland. But once Rebecca really loved the mustache, I was like, I'll keep it for a little while. And then we found out that we weren't raising enough money this year for Massey Cancer Treatment Center,
Okay.
which is one of the best cancer research centers in the country,
Right.
bar none. And 2 years ago when we last did the fundraiser, did the basketball tournament between the House and the Senate that we do every year, we raised about $10,500 on the House side. And I was talking with one of my close friends, Delegate Coiner,
Yeah.
who was telling me that we'd only raised maybe half of that. And so I was like, well, you know what? I know a way to be able to motivate people. And so if we beat what we'd raised in prior years, I'll shave the mustache during halftime of the tournament tomorrow.
So
And-
this is you're on the clock. This mustache
Oh,
is on the
yeah.
clock.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm glad you got him
no,
now.
tomorrow at 7:30, when the game begins, we're going to do a final total. If we've beaten 10,500, stash is gone. If it gets to $15,000, Delegate Ferris will do it himself.
shave your mustache.
That's right.
So I'm
chargy.
conflicted here. I'm a little conflicted. I would not want to watch that.
This has potential of being a total runaway tradition.
You know
People
what?
can start shaving anything to get the splash in social media.
It's all for a good cause.
Well, that's what it really is.
Yeah.
It's all for raising money. You know, my mother is a now 27-year cancer survivor of breast
God
cancer,
bless.
and so that is something that motivates me on a daily basis
I bet.
to be able to share how successful her treatment was, and so that's something that motivates me. That's why I'm involved with Massey.
Yeah, it's 27 years ago. It wasn't as nearly successful as it is today, and hopefully soon we'll have that almost 100%
That's right.
successful.
That's the goal.
That would be a blessing. Delegate Tata, what bills are you working on?
So I have 4 that are still, 3 that are still alive. I have a couple one that already passed. 2 of them are related to military. One is for a suicide prevention coordinator to help, veterans and their families to try to deal with some of the PTSD and other things that they face. And the other is an infrastructure grant fund that's going to help all of our areas that have military installations. And what it does is it helps the surrounding area for infrastructure and resiliency and quality of life. So the money could be used to build a daycare center.
Right.
So those are still alive. And then I have
You're creating a fund to do this.
there is a fund.
Funded?
Well, there is a fund and there's money allocated for it. And what's really great about it, it's kind of an investment fund because they're matching federal dollars. So if the localities will spend money from that fund, they can get matching dollars, federal dollars. So it's a great program. And then the one that I'm really excited about is for foster care. And that is, there's a great program in Virginia called Fostering Futures. And so when kids age out of foster care, they can sign up for Fostering Futures, and it helps them with fostering services or going to college or housing or a number of different things. However, because of a variety of reasons, some of these young people, brokenness, trauma,
Sure.
they just I'm like, I'm over, I want to get away from the system. They don't sign up. And what's been happening is some of these that fall through the cracks end up homeless. So my bill provides just housing for 6 months to allow them to kind of figure out, can they get on their own? And if not, it has,
Okay.
So, and that one's still
How many
alive.
kids age out every year? Do you know?
In Virginia, about 400
Every year.
every year. And about 60% of those do sign up for Fostering Futures, which is great.
Okay.
So it's only, again, it's just a safety net for those that don't.
Yeah, but that's that handful matters.
That handful matters.
That's, if you're helping just
Yeah.
one person, as my wife says, you've done a good thing.
Yeah.
Delegate Mullin, what have you tackled this year?
So much of what I'm focused on are things related to elder abuse. And so one of the things that working with an organization called VCJC, which is a criminal justice collective we have here in Virginia that brings defense attorneys, prosecutors, judges, everyone together into the room to talk about what's best practice for our court system. And one of the things that we found, particularly in the Virginia Peninsula where we have such a high population of retirees, particularly military retirees, is that people who have wills or powers of attorney that they give to a close family friend or a family member can find themselves being victims of financial abuse. People who are in charge of someone else's money but decide to use it for their own. And that's incredibly hard to find. It's even harder to prosecute. And too often there's no recourse other than someone ends up in the final years of their life destitute because someone that they loved and cared about took advantage of them. And so we've set up a series of bills this year. One, to make sure that someone who's been convicted of stealing from someone through a power of attorney doesn't get to keep the power of attorney, which right now is not a thing that can occur. You'd think that once you start to be criminalizing that sort of relationship,
Right.
you wouldn't have it any longer. And the second is to finally make it a direct crime because it's been so hard to prosecute. And that's one of those things that's so
Yeah,
important.
these are the bills you think that, how can you come up with 2,000 more bills every year? And the fact of the matter is a lot of these bills don't make it out the first year. They keep coming back and getting better and getting better and getting stronger before they can, pass muster.
Well, and returning to something that you were talking about with Delegate Tata for a second, the foster care system here in Virginia is at best a hot mess.
That bad.
I mean, extraordinarily difficult.
Fair?
For, yeah.
Assessment?
Fair.
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 Okay,
Yeah.
so we have bipartisan agreement here.
And that was not something that I was aware of when I came here into the General Assembly. That's not something I had a background or expertise in.
Even though you're a prosecutor.
Even as a prosecutor, but so often the foster care system is something that takes over once we're done. And so I don't get to see those kids after they've left the criminal system.
Right.
And so I don't always know what happens to them. I always, say a little prayer at night just to hope that they're doing all right, but I don't know.
Right.
When he came here to the General Assembly, found out the answer is they're not doing great, and that our system as a whole puts barriers, tremendous barriers, to just allowing family members to be able to foster their own kin. It was only a year and a half ago that we changed the law so that a family member can receive the foster care payments that we give to non-family members to foster children. And part of the reason for that is that we want to encourage children to stay within the family. We don't want to break up, families in some way, but we had to change the law to do that. I had no background or expertise in that. I don't know if you did.
No.
But it's when your community needs something, that's where you need to sort of crack the books,
Right.
start to learn something new.
Yeah, those are the fine-tuning moments in every community, in every society, is when you're taking care of those who can't take care of themselves or just need help taking care of themselves. That's that extra little something that people go, whoa, yeah, okay, but I hate them because they're for this, politically, and we get lost in the partisan mess. How do we get past this deeply divided partisan world in our nation? I mean, what's going to be the nudge? What's going to be the reality check? Because we don't need another 9/11 to get us to 9/12 America.
No, I think that social media has had just as much of a negative effect on our body politic as it has been positive. We are seeing increases in, people who would never say something to your face or in person, who are willing to say the most horrific things that ratchet up partisan tensions, and send people to their corners on social media. And it's not helpful. I certainly expect it during campaigns, but even post-campaign you start to see that. And that's just as much from elected officials as it is from the general population. I think we have a responsibility for that as well.
Yeah, one of the things I've been doing on social media, and I haven't needed to in a long time, I don't know if it's because of it, but I would put a GIF up that was a yellow card from a soccer referee.
That's good.
I like that.
Just nope, we're not doing that.
There you go.
If you get a red card, I'll unfriend you.
Yeah, you're out.
Just have a standard. Just don't do this. Don't attack people. If you do this, call them names. We'll throw a yellow card up there. What's it going to take, Delegate Tata?
Well, I think of that song, which it's going to sound corny, but "Let there be peace on earth, but let it begin with you." I mean, I feel like it does start.
Yeah.
Why is that corny?
Starts well. Well, I mean, it starts.
That's the great thing about the song, right? That's the beautiful thing.
And it's true. It's like starting with just you and your circle and how you react to things. And one thing I do think that I feel like all of us need to be a little thicker skinned and not be so sensitive and offended all the time. I mean, people are going to hurt your feelings. I grew up with 4 brothers. I mean, I was getting, they said things to me all the time. My sister and I got, attacked all the time verbally and sometimes physically, but you just, you don't quit your family. I don't stop loving people and trying to have a relationship. And I just feel like it really does start with us. It starts with what am I putting on my social media? Instead of looking at what everyone else is doing and judging them, what am I putting out there? And then what am I doing to respond to something that comes at me?
Right.
How am I responding? And starting there, and then just, even if somebody does attack, don't engage. Just let it roll off your back, and just, don't accept the words that were just spoken over you. Just, it starts with individually. And I feel like if more people start getting tired of all this vitriol, because it really isn't like that. I mean, what I've experienced in 6 weeks, I'm really encouraged. So,
but also I think it's incumbent upon us and y'all, in particular, is to tell that story more often to the base of your parties back home, our parties, your parties, whatever the party is, to say, look, this is not helping. This is really detrimental to the long-term, sustainability of the republic.
Absolutely.
The only way we're going to fail is from within.
Absolutely.
I mean, no one's going to outcompete America in the global stage. But what we see, and I guess it's been brought to my attention more so with this Ukraine-Russia mess, is it brings to question some of the old ones that we used to answer every day. What really matters? And I used to facetiously lament the demise of the Cold War, because we always had a common enemy, something we could always agree on.
Right.
But now we don't seem to be able to agree on anything, at least publicly, but privately. You're still doing what the General Assembly's been doing for years, is getting stuff done and being agreeable without being disagreeable for the most part. Fair?
No, absolutely. And I wish it wasn't that there needs to be an external force to push against to be able to bring that forward. But I will point out that part of the reason I think that we see a ratcheting of tension as well is because there's been a real demise of sort of traditional media. Newspapers, local newspapers in particular, are dying on a regular basis. And so it used to be that every community over 15,000 people had its own newspaper back in town. And so the most important media to each delegate or senator was what was going on back at home in Stanton.
Oh yeah.
And that's not the case anymore. There are 3 newspapers that send reporters to the General Assembly, and that's it. And they cover the entirety of Richmond and the Commonwealth. And I think that's a shame, because it ends up meaning that there isn't an opportunity to be able to tell stories that are a little bit more local, a little bit less partisan, because, if it bleeds, it leads, is always the phrase that you see in larger papers. And that's not the reality of most.
Because it's what moves voters that gets the attention. Because that's what we pay attention to, right? Because if you're, just because you mentioned Stanton, the news leader, no knock on them, it's just the way the whole industry has evolved. Back in the day when I ran, people paid attention to it, read it, and it influenced them. If Bob Melton in 2000, 2001, 2002 called you with the Washington Post, called you and left a message, you were having a really bad day. This was a moment like, I really don't know what's going on here, and Bob Melton just called me, and if I don't call him back, this is an even worse day.
Absolutely.
He was that well respected as a journalist. But it was like Mike Wallace back in the day, showing up at your place of business for 60 Minutes, right? And they show up with the camera like, oh, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Because it moved public opinion.
Absolutely.
Today, if you get attacked by the Washington Post or a newspaper, you can use it for your political benefit. Sure. It's jujitsu. Oh, I get to raise money off of this. You don't go, oh, I should rethink what I'm doing here. Maybe I've done something wrong. Because your people don't respond to media that's not moving people in your own party, right?
And that's a true shame. And I think part of it is just that you see, a few companies that own all the local newspapers, or that local newspapers are just dying. And when you transfer that sort of way that people learn about what's going on in their government to social media instead, that leaves things in a very negative place.
Because the people who influence you the most and have your attention, correct me if I'm wrong, are people going to be within your party who control your nomination to get to the first level of election, to get to the second level of election, right? I mean, that's first and foremost, you got to get to 1 before you get to 2. Is that fair?
No, I think as
I'm trying to deconstruct this for the folks back home playing on the board version.
I think as I don't want to say gerrymandering, but certainly the districts have become more strongly blue or more strongly red. There are not as many of those purple districts that you see anymore. The thing that people respond to most is pressure from their own party, usually from the left or from the right, and so it forces people back, as I was saying earlier, into their corners. And you're responding to a very small, very loud constituency that you're interacting with mostly on social media,
right.
Which is not the reality of what is happening back home in Botetourt or Fauquier.
Delegate Tata, where do you get your information? What's your information source?
That's so funny. As you guys were talking, I was just thinking to really find out what's going on over in Ukraine right now. I'm at a loss at what to find. I mean, a lot of times I hate to say I start at Twitter. I start at Twitter just to say what are they saying, but for me right now there is not a trusted resource.
I recommend the BBC World Service.
Really?
They're a wonderful sort of, I mean, they're so far outside of American politics that there's not really a way to it. And they have reporters that are out there in the Ukraine. They seem to be a really wonderful resource.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that.
But where do you normally get your media? If you're
not that well.
How does one inform and influence Delegate Tata?
So I do try to, when it comes to the newspapers, the Richmond, and I don't read the Virginian Pilot very often, but I do try to look at the Richmond paper, especially because I'm here. And then I turn on Fox, I turn on CNN, I turn on MSNBC. I just, again, I'm trying to
see it all,
determine and discern
Okay.
So.
Delegate Mullin?
I worked as a reporter for quite a while in college, and then so I still go towards traditional media. I'll read the Pilot, the RTD, obviously the Daily Press, the Virginia Gazette, which is our paper in Williamsburg.
Okay.
I try to read as much as I can. Although I don't have any physical subscriptions anymore, so
you're all online.
All online, all digital.
Delegate Tata, you all online too?
We get the Richmond paper, the actual paper. My husband's old school. He loves a newspaper.
I would have a stack every day if I could. Every day.
That's my husband. So because of him, we get the actual paper.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a little personal dive here. Delegate Mullin and I have a very important connection in life, but you do as well. I understand you're friends with a certain celebrity, Kathie Lee Gifford.
Yes, Kathie Lee Gifford is. Do you know her too?
No, I do. Well, I just watched
so
her
adorable.
on television.
Like, everyone else knows Kathie Lee Gifford.
No, I just watched her on
everyone feels like they know her, right?
On Morning for my entire childhood. So
I have to tell you, she is exactly how she was on TV. She is the most real, hilarious, self-depreciating. I mean, she is so quick. And
how'd you get to know her?
Through another dear friend, one of my best friends, a woman named Ann Nielsen, who's an incredible painter, artist, and author. She paints angels, like really beautiful angels. And she and Kathie connected about 6 or 7 years ago, and then she introduced me. And since then, the three of us have become incredibly close. I went to Scotland with her. Kathie filmed a movie over there.
Oh, so you know her.
Oh yeah, she's like a very, very dear friend. She's amazing. But she's not into politics, so I would never,
I'm gonna try to stump the delegate over here. You and I have in common Mike Ditka.
Oh.
Martina Navratilova.
Wow.
Zac Efron.
Okay.
It's our birthday.
Another October.
Give me
What's up?
18th.
There you go.
October 18th.
Best day you could possibly be born for. Yeah, my goodness.
You were not born October 18th.
I was not.
Well, there's a club.
Yeah, I know.
That's where all the cool kids are hanging
very
out.
left out.
There's a meeting later. Dues are low. So. Favorite movie?
Truly, Madly, Deeply, which is a British romance film that came out in the early 90s.
Okay.
It is one of the most wonderful films that I could possibly recommend.
Okay. Delegate Tata.
No Way Out. Remember
really?
that?
Gene Hackman, Kevin Costner?
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I was so stunned at the end of that movie, I couldn't even leave the theater. I didn't see it coming. You know the end.
Don't tell.
I won't, but I would.
Spoiler warning.
I literally sat in my seat because I was so devastated. Anyway, I just thought it was really well done.
Favorite TV show then? We won't do that. Tell Delegate Tata, favorite TV show?
Oh gosh, not a big TV. Seinfeld.
Okay.
I know it's
strong,
reruns.
Strong play. Always good for the classics.
I quote them all the time.
That's even better.
So the reason I became a prosecutor is because I wanted to be Jack McCoy from Law and Order.
Okay.
That's where I was fascinated by the courtroom. So.
How early were you as a young tut?
I don't know, 8 or 9. 8 or 9.
Really?
It was on TBS at like 5 o'clock when I got home from school.
Sam Waterston.
That's right, man.
He was good.
He's coming back.
Is he?
Yeah, this season it comes back in a week.
Battling his demons and winning, hopefully.
Oh, I hope so. But I mean, I love that show.
Favorite sports teams?
Well, I'm now a Commanders fan, but had started out as a Redskins fan my whole life. Washington D.C. sports.
Vote for the Bill?
I did actually. Yeah, okay. I did. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring him here to Virginia with a fair compromise.
Okay.
UVA, any sport.
Courtesy of the coach.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Well,
exactly.
That's what he was, Coach
yeah,
Tata.
Yeah, that's
right. All right. Favorite music?
There's probably some embarrassing photos of me from my emo stage back in 2002. So a lot of alternative music is where I'm going to. But what does my wife always say? I've gotten more into dad music as I'm getting older.
What's dad music?
She calls Jason Isbell dad music.
As a dad, I can say that's not dad music.
I don't think so either. Amazing.
I have more kids than you do. Tell her she's wrong.
There you go. I think so too.
Rolling Stones. That's
dad music is much more. So Jason Isbell is probably one of the ones I'm listening to the most right now.
All right.
Contemporary Christian.
Such as?
Oh, Casting Crowns.
Okay.
Matthew West. Have you?
Yeah, the K-Love concert thing in Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, good folks.
For King and Country, one of my favorites.
Good people.
Yeah. That's my jam.
See, this is how we get to the people know each other.
Absolutely.
That's how we do this.
A lot of overlap.
Well, and I can't wait I'm going to talk about elder abuse with you later.
See?
Yeah, and it sounds like you might help me with thoughts.
It's happening. It's
happening. You did this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank VCTA, the Broadband Association of Virginia, and Virginia Free. We're nonpartisan, nonprofit, pro-business organization since 1988, trying to make the Commonwealth a better place for everyone through the free enterprise system and pro-business responsible governance. I want to thank you both for coming in today.
It's a real pleasure.
It's
been a lot of fun today.
You.
I hope you'll have a great session and come on again.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you.
Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share the VIP podcast and our two brand new VIPs, Delegate Mike Mullin and Delegate Ferrell Tata. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.